So today we're going to be working with NICOPP brake lines. You can actually see them right here coming off the brake booster. I'm going to show you the tools you need. Now I've divided this into tools required and tools that would be nice to have. Of course you're going to need the nickel copper brake line, the NICOPP. You're going to need cutters, something to cut the old brake lines off, vice grips, or something else again to pull it off with the old lines. A 10 millimeter, I used a flare. I would suggest that this is actually to bleed the brakes. A 14 millimeter flare. This 14 millimeter flare wrench is able to fit on a line and contact it actually 6 sides so that it prevents stripping and it allows you to put the line on and twist. You're going to need that to reinstall the line. You're also going to need a 14 millimeter socket and socket wrench. The brake flare tool itself, now this is just the cheapest flare tool I could find at the auto store. This is kind of chintzy to be honest, but it will make do. There are much better design tools that I've used, but this is what I had. And then of course you're going to need some .3 brake fluid. Some tools that would be nice would be this 14 millimeter flare wrench with a pivoting head. Allows you to get into some tighter places while still maintaining a flare. Some locking needle nose pliers, crescent wrench. Now I have this gimmicky crescent like this. This is mostly used on this flare tool head to get a proper tightening down on it. Good old pair of dikes, snips. I really like having a headlamp when I'm working underneath the vehicle. And this DIY brake bleeder, which is just a hose stuck down into a bottle. I use clear so I could see what's working and what's not. We actually use this to bleed the brakes. It makes the job very easy. This here is the new brake manifold that splits the front brake line between the two front brake calipers. 1/8 NPT T's right here, 2 street 90s right here and here, and then an adapter to convert it from 1/8 NPT, this piece here, to the Chevy fitting. You can see here that with these nuts that I am reusing them. I would recommend getting a new one. However, this is for my beater pickup truck. I'm not too concerned about it. If it were my daily driver, I would definitely replace these just to feel a little bit safer. It's also worth noting these are kind of oddball sizes. I couldn't find these at the local auto parts store, so good luck finding those. I'm not sure where to find new ones of these. It's also worth noting that they're different sizes. You can see in the threads there that the threads actually do not match between the different ones. Yeah, you can see that better there. Now with this brake manifold that we built, the guy I found that built this, that designed this, it's a pretty simple design, but it works. The guy I built had actually left the ABS pump and all the lines in the factory location. Since I was replacing the brake lines anyway, I figured this was a lot easier to build this and then rerun my own brake lines because it's actually going to cut down on a lot. Again, we're running all custom brake lines. The NICOPP is actually pretty easy to work with. It's going to cut down on how much we need. Instead of having a 3 or 4 foot line going from the manifold to the ABS pump, and instead of 2 of those actually, and instead of having a 6 or 7, 8 foot line going from the passenger caliper all the way to the ABS pump, again underneath the driver's seat, it's only going to go from the passenger caliper around to the brake booster. So it's going to cut down on the amount of lines we need. It's also going to cut down on the amount of work we need. Again, you will be losing ABS, but at least with this truck, with me, I've never actually locked the brakes up even when the ABS was functioning. So I don't think it's necessary. It would be nice in the snow and the rain, and it is a good safety measure, but for me, for this pickup truck, I'm not too concerned about it. So what you're seeing here is the rear brake line. This is the factory line here. This comes from the ABS pump. This line here comes from the ABS pump and goes to this soft line right here. What we're going to do, we're just going to cut this off. We're going to cut all the hard lines off. I'm starting in the rear. Just going to go ahead and cut all the hard lines, the factory lines off. I'm just going to use a pair of snips, cut it, and then just put a standard 14 millimeter on, take it off. Right here where my finger's at is where one of the brake lines went. This is one of the hard lines. You can see the soft line here. So one of the hard lines went from there through the engine bay, in front of the radiator, up the frame rail. And you'd say, oh, it went to the brake booster, right? Nope. It went down this little crack right here. You can see it, down where that light is, to the ABS pump, which is located, give you a reference point here, underneath the driver's seat, down here, on the inside of the frame rail. So these aren't exactly laid out as I got them. They were roughly, I had to cut them out in sections. These two are the ones coming off the brake booster. Let's just follow. The rear one is the front brake, so follow it. It goes down here. This is roughly the shape again, and where my finger is right here is, if you can imagine these lines in the truck, where the ABS pump is. They then take that line, go all the way back, same line. They share a clip. There's one of the clips you can see. They go back, they share a line, and come out to, would be the front driver brake caliper. Again, these aren't the exact pipes how they're laid out, but they are roughly to scale, just to give you an idea. All that, this from here, excuse me, all this line from here all the way back to the ABS pump has now been replaced with that section right there. That's all there is to it. That little 6-inch, well, that might be guy measuring, but roughly 6-inch piece of pipe. So this is the NICOPP brake line itself. It's actually fun. It kind of looks like I'm working on some moonshine. That's what it looks like. But it's really easy to bend. If you can see here, I'm actually just going to bend it by hand. I can do all kinds of fun shapes with it to get around where I need to go. But first thing you're going to need to do, good old tubing cutter. There's actually a smaller version of these that might actually work a little bit better, but this is the one I got. So what you want to do is you want to take this, open it up, put it in between the two rollers, tighten it down, and as soon as that blade makes contact, stop tightening, do a loop. Everybody knows how to use a tubing cutter, but I'm showing here for demonstration purposes. Do a loop. After that, you'll want to spin the knob just a little. You'll feel it pressurize again. Do a loop. What you're doing is you're making just a series of very small cuts. Some people like to crank these down. If you crank them down too much, what ends up happening is you can actually bend the blade. So I've always kind of gone easy on them. I don't know what as soft as this line is, if that's really necessary, but better safe than sorry. I'm also kind of taking my time with this since it's hard to do all this on camera, but you can see here, this is all it did. It gives a nice clean cut there. You can see there, it gives a nice clean cut, which is what we're going to need to do a proper flare. This here is the type of flare we're going for. I believe it's called a double flare. What you want is a nice straight line like that. The flare tool I have does have a little bit of, leaves a little bit of teeth marks, but that shouldn't interfere with it. When using a flare tool, you want to make sure you put the nuts on first, as once you put the flare on, the nut will not slide off. Seems like something simple, but it's a very easy mistake to make, and then you'll have to recut the line, re-drill it, or not drill it, but recut the line, reflare it, reposition it, and it just is a lot of time saving. Actually putting it on beforehand saves you a lot of headache. This is the flare tool I have. It's the cheapest flare tool I could find. This is kind of an awful tool, but it will work. There are much better flare tool designs. The tool itself is pretty straightforward. With this flare tool, you put the 1/4 inch line in the 1/4 inch hole right here. You tighten down these two nuts right here, and then you line it up. Well, you line it up first actually, but you line it up so that it's the same height up as this piece is here. So you can see those two are the same height. You then take the plunger, flip it upside down, put it in, slide this tool here, center it, very important to center it, and tighten it down. Now I have this mounted in a vise. Using this tool by hand is quite tricky, so I would recommend putting it in a vise or bolting it or clamping it to something, even without having to film. This is kind of finicky. From there, you simply tighten it down. You want to go until you get all of a sudden a lot more pressure. Right there. Once it's pushed down, take this off. Slide it on over. Take this piece out. This will want to jam. You can use either a pair of pliers, or I use a flathead screwdriver, a little one, with a very small bit to kind of pry it open. From there, you slide this piece back down, center it again, and crank her down. So hard to be looking at two places at once. Miss you, Tony. Let's see. I'm also just some crazy guy talking to himself in the garage right now. Hope someone's watching me. Not out there on YouTube land, but you know, right now as I'm filming. So once this is on, you recenter it, and then you do the same motion we did before. Just turn it down until you get a lot more resistance. With the tool out, take these nuts, back them off, open it back up, and there you got a nice pretty flare. All that work for this end result right here. This bit of line is all we used. This is the new manifold, and we're going to install it in, and we're going to run a line from each front brake caliper to this piece right here. Alright, this is our new driver's side brake line. This is all there is to it. There's a flare there. There's the original nut here. And you can see just how much shorter that is. I'm measuring at a foot at the bend and then a little bit more. So let's be really conservative and call it 18 inches of brake line. And that's all you need to get back to the manifold. Okay, this is the new front brake manifold. Like I said, it's the rear. This one here is the front, that's the rear. Plug on that, they go down. There's the one into the driver's side right there. Oh, nice focus. The passenger side does a little bit more snaking around, but it does come right in. to the passenger side right here. This line right here is the driver's side. The one down there further, clipped to the frame, is the passenger. It goes down, around in the factory location, over to right here, right where my finger's at, and into the soft line, which you can see right there. Okay, we're out in daylight now. That is the new front right there. You can see the rear one going backwards, clipping onto the frame rail, going into the factory location. I then run it up here. I'm now going to thread it, or flare it in spot, and thread it for this insert. To bleed your brakes, this is what we're doing right now. There is an 8mm wrench on the bleeder screw. I've put a hose on it. The hose goes into a bottle of fluid. The bottom of the hose must be submerged in fluid. I've opened the master cylinder, and you can see there, ever so slowly, it's creeping forward. So we're going to let it do some gravity bleeding to get the bulk of it out, and then we're going to do a two-person bleed where one person pumps the brakes. With the brakes bled, start up the truck, let it build boost, check your brakes, put her all back together. Put the wheels back on, put the fender liners back on, up there. Test the brakes before you put it in drive. Make sure the brakes are working, and you're good to go.